They laughed behind my back while I gave them my last. My old man taught me that family is like the heating system in an old house. Complicated, sometimes noisy, but supposed to keep everyone warm equally. 25 years I was a furnace keeper in that system, feeding my money, dreams, and time. I patched their financial leaks while they treated me not as part of the system, but as a boiler they could endlessly draw hot water from. 3 weeks ago they decided I wasn't running hot enough and shut off my valve. Last week I hit the Powerball for $250 million. Now their house is very, very cold. And me? I've shut down the main boiler. For good. You know what the funny thing about being a plumber is? People only call you when something's already broken. Nobody ever calls to say their pipes are working great. Same with family, I guess. They only remembered I existed when their bank account started making that gurgling sound. You know, the one that means the tank's running dry. I was 16 when Dad first took me down to old Mrs. Henderson's basement in Cleveland. The whole place smelled like mildew and cat pee, and there was this nightmare of copper pipes that looked like someone had tried to solve a Rubik's Cube with a welding torch. Dad just stood there for a minute, hands on his hips, studying it like it was the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Then he turned to me with that look. You know the one fathers get when they're about to drop some wisdom that'll stick with you forever. We worked in silence for about an hour, me holding the flashlight while he traced every joint, every connection. Finally, while wiping his hands on that old red rag he always kept in his back pocket, he started talking. Said people think plumbing is about pipes and water, but it's not. It's about pressure and balance. Same as family, he said. You help where it leaks. They help where it pressures you. That's the deal. That's how it's supposed to work. But then he grabbed my shoulder. His hands were rough as sandpaper from 40 years of honest work, and looked me dead in the eye. Said if pressure only goes one way, even the strongest pipe will burst eventually. Don't let anyone turn you into their emergency relief valve, Frank. Funny how a memory can be just a memory for decades, and then one day it turns into a diagnosis of your whole damn life. See, I thought I was being the good son, the good brother, the good uncle, following Dad's code, being the guy who shows up, the reliable one, the one who never says no when family calls. Turned out I wasn't following his advice at all. I become exactly what he warned me against. An emergency relief valve for everyone else's bad decisions. Let me paint you a picture of what 25 years of being that valve looks like back in 2008. When the economy tanked and everyone was losing their shirts, I'd finally saved enough to buy this little workshop on the east side. Nothing fancy, just a garage with good bones where I could set up my own plumbing business properly. Had the down payment ready, loan pre-approved, the works. Then my sister Carol calls. Cry about how her dream of opening an eco-friendly boutique was about to die before it even started. She just needed 40 grand. Just 40 grand. That's how she said it, like it was pocket change. The workshop went to someone else. Her boutique lasted 13 months before she discovered that nobody in our neighborhood wanted to pay $30 for organic soap that smelled like compost. Or how about when my best friend Mike was getting married in Phoenix? We'd been tight since high school, back when we both thought we'd make it big somehow. I had my plane ticket, hotel booked, even bought a new suit. First one I'd owned that didn't come from Goodwill. 2 days before the flight, my nephew Kyle calls. He'd gotten into this exclusive acting workshop in L.A., the kind where washed-up TV actors teach you how to cry on command for 10 grand. He needed the money immediately, or he'd lose his spot. What was I going to do? Let the kids' dreams die? So Mike got married without me there. Kyle came back from L.A. 2 months later. Said acting wasn't really his passion after all. Now he wanted to be a life coach. My truck tells the whole story better than I ever could. It's a 2009 F-150, bought used in 2011, and it sounds like a 90-year-old man trying to get out of bed. Every morning it groans and wheezes, and I swear sometimes I can hear it asking why I keep doing this to it. Meanwhile, I bought Kyle 3 cars. First one, he wrapped around a telephone pole because he was texting. Second one got stolen because he left it running outside a dispensary. The third one, and this is my favorite, He totaled because he was listening to a podcast about mindfulness and forgot to be mindful of the red light in front of him. You want to know the real kicker? I've been wearing the same work boots for 5 years. Red Wings, good American-made boots that cost me $300 back when that was real money to me. The sole's been glued back on 4 times. There's more duct tape than leather on them now. But every time I thought about getting new ones, something would come up. Carol needed a new water heater. Kyle needed therapy. Then Kyle needed different therapy. Then Kyle needed therapy for his therapy. Mom needed this. Cousin Jerry needed that. Always something more important than keeping my feet dry. Women? Forget about it. Had a few chances over the years. Nice women, too. The kind who laugh at bad jokes and don't mind callous hands. But you try explaining why you can't go to dinner Saturday night because your sister's ex-boyfriend's cousin needs help moving. And you promise because family is family. Try explaining why your vacation fund just became your nephew's bail money. After a while, you stop trying. You stop dating. You just work, go home, and wait for the next emergency call. Sarah from the hardware store. Now she was something special. We flirted over pipe fittings and drain cleaner for 2 years. She finally asked me out, and I said yes. Know how long that lasted? 3 dates. 3 dates before Kyle called saying he was stranded in Vegas with no money and possibly in trouble with some very unfriendly people. I drove 14 hours straight to get him. When I got back, Sarah had already started dating the electrician. Can't say I blame her. Electricians have better hours. But last Thursday, that's when everything changed. Carol was throwing one of her parties. You know the type, where everyone drinks wine they can't pronounce and pretends to care about abstract art. She only invited me because her garbage disposal had been making sounds like a dying raccoon for 3 days, and she knew I'd fix it if I was there anyway. So there I was, sprawled under her sink on a Thursday night, listening to her guests talk about their meditation retreats and wondering how my life had come to this. The disposal was properly jammed. Someone had tried to grind up what looked like an entire centerpiece, fake flowers and all. I was wrestling with it, grease up to my elbows, when I heard Kyle's voice directly above me. The kitchen floor in Carol's old house is thin. You can hear everything from the basement. He was talking to someone, probably his new girlfriend, the one studying to be an influencer, whatever that means. At first, it was just normal Kyle garbage. How he was going to start a podcast about finding yourself, how his uncle, that's me, was this simple guy who didn't understand ambition. I'd heard it all before. Water off a duck's back, as Dad used to say. But then his girlfriend asked something about money, and Kyle laughed. Not just a regular laugh. The kind that makes your stomach turn, you know? The kind that tells you exactly what someone really thinks. He starts telling her about the Alaska trip. My Alaska trip, the one I'd been planning since I was 30. Fishing for salmon, watching the northern lights. Just 2 weeks of silence and peace. Been saving for it for 3 years. Had all booked for last summer. Then Kyle needed emergency surgery. At least, that's what he told me. Appendicitis, he said. Life or death. I gave him $8,000, my entire Alaska fund, plus some emergency savings. Then I heard it crystal clear through those thin floorboards. Kyle's actual words, bragging to his girlfriend. He said he sent me a picture from a hospital bed he found on Google. Said I was probably praying for him while he was doing tequila shots on the beach. Called me, and these exact words burned into my brain. A predictable old saint. So desperate to matter that I believe anything. Said it was actually doing me a favor, giving my pathetic life some purpose. My hand stopped moving on the wrench. Everything just stopped. You ever have one of those moments where your whole life suddenly makes sense, but in the worst possible way? Like when you finally see the magic I picture, but it's showing you something you never want to see. The girlfriend laughed too. Said something about how it must be nice having a personal ATM. Kyle agreed. Said the best part was I'd never figured out, because I wasn't smart enough to check anything. Just a dumb plumber who happened to be related to him. His personal emergency fund with a pulse. I laid there under that sink for what felt like hours, but was probably only a minute. The party noise above seemed to fade away. All I could hear was my own breathing, and the slow drip of water from the pipe I hadn't finished fixing. 30 years of fixing other people's problems, and I couldn't even fix my own life. Dad's voice echoed in my head about not becoming an emergency valve, and I finally understood. I wasn't part of the family system. I was just the utility they call when something broke. Very carefully, very quietly, I packed up my tools. Every movement deliberate, like I was defusing a bomb, which in a way I guess I was. The garbage disposal was still broken. Let them call a real plumber. Let them pay the emergency rates. Let them see what it actually costs when you're not family. I stood up in that basement, my knees creaking from too many years of kneeling on cold concrete, and looked around. Carol's basement was full of stuff I'd fixed, installed, or paid for. The water heater, me. The new electrical panel, me. The shelving units holding boxes of her failed business ventures. Built them myself on a Sunday when the Packers were playing. The walk up those basement stairs felt like climbing out my own grave. Each step was a decision. Each step was a goodbye. At the top, I could see into the living room where Carol was holding court, wine glass in hand, talking about how hard it was to find authentic people these days. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't hurt so much. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't make a scene. That's not how guys like me operate. We don't do dramatic exits. We just fix what we can and leave when we can't. I walked through that party like a ghost, invisible to everyone there, which, when I think about it, wasn't much different from how they usually saw me. Only this time, I was choosing to be invisible. My truck started on the third try, which felt like a small miracle. As I drove away from Carol's house, I didn't look in the rear-view mirror. There was nothing back there I needed to see. 25 years of my life in that mirror, and all of it spent being someone else's solution to problems they created themselves. The radio was playing some old Springsteen song about glory days, and I had to turn it off. No glory days here. Just a 58-year-old plumber with bad knees and a truck held together by rust and prayer, driving into the night with absolutely no idea what came next. But for the first time in 25 years, the pressure valve was closed. And that silence, that beautiful, terrifying silence, it sounded like freedom. I drove around the city for hours that night, no destination in mind, just driving and thinking. Passed by the workshop I'd wanted to buy all those years ago. It's a coffee shop now, artisanal, locally sourced, $8 for a cup of coffee. Carol would love it. Passed by Mike's old house. He moved to Phoenix permanently after the wedding, probably for the best. Ended up at the 24-hour diner on Route 47, the one where Dad used to take me after late-night emergency calls. Sat in the same booth we always did, ordered coffee that tasted like battery acid, just like it always had. The waitress, must have been 70 if she was a day, looked at me and asked if I was okay. First person to ask me that in years and actually wait for an answer. I told her I was fine. And you know what? For the first time in a long time, I wasn't lying. I was broke, tired, probably about to lose my apartment because I'd given Kyle the rent money for his latest emergency. But I was fine. Because I was done. The valve was closed, the pressure was off, and whatever happened next, at least it would be my choice. The tools in my truck clinked against each other as I drove home, playing their familiar tune. But it sounded different now. Not like chains rattling, but like wind chimes, like something breaking free. I pulled into my apartment complex as the sun was coming up, painting everything gold and new. Tomorrow I'd have to figure out how to pay rent, how to keep the lights on, how to keep going without being anyone's emergency fund. But tonight, this morning, I just sat in my truck, watching the sunrise, and felt the beautiful terror of not knowing what comes next. That sunrise in my truck was the first one I'd really seen in years. Not just looked at, actually seen. You know the difference. It's like when you finally clean out a drain that's been backing up for months, and suddenly the water flows the way it's supposed to. That's what my brain felt like that morning. Clear, moving, alive. 3 days passed. 3 days of not answering my phone, which had become a symphony of missed calls and text messages. The old Nokia buzzed itself across my nightstand like an angry bee trapped in a jar. Carol called 17 times. Kyle sent texts that went from concerned to annoyed to threatening. Even cousins I hadn't heard from since the last funeral suddenly remembered I existed. Funny how family works. Ignore you for years, then act like you owe them immediate attention the second they need something. But Sunday came anyway. It always does. And Sunday meant family dinner at Carol's. Been going for 15 years straight. Never missed one except when I had that emergency call about the burst pipe at the children's hospital. Even showed up once with a fever of 102 because Carol said it would ruin her table arrangement if I wasn't there. That's the thing about routines. They become chains so slowly you don't notice until you try to move. I sat in my truck outside her house for 10 minutes that Sunday. Part of me wanted to just drive away. Part of me, the bigger part, the part trained by 25 years of showing up, said I needed to face this. Dad always said you finish what you start, even if what you're finishing is finishing itself. So I went in. The house smelled like pot roast and disappointment. Carol had made my favorite, which should have been my first warning. She only made pot roast when she wanted something expensive. The last time was when she needed me to co-sign for that business loan. The time before that, when Kyle needed bail money. Food as manipulation. It's an art form in some families. Everyone acted normal, aggressively normal, like those scenes in movies where everyone knows there's a body in the basement, but they're all pretending it's just another dinner party. Kyle was there with his girlfriend, the influencer in training. She kept taking photos of her food, like it was about to cure cancer. Mom sat at the head of the table, confused as always these days, probably wondering why everyone was being so nice. We made it through the salad, through the main course. Carol kept the conversation flowing like a master plumber, keeping pressure in the pipes. Steady, controlled, purposeful. Stories about her book club, Kyle's latest podcast idea, the neighbor's divorce. Anything but the elephant in the room, wearing work boots and drinking cheap beer. Then came dessert. Apple pie, because of course it was apple pie. As American as passive aggression and unpaid family debts. Carol cleared her throat the way she does when she's about to make an announcement. That theatrical little cough that means everyone needs to pay attention because something important is coming. I knew that cough. That cough had cost me thousands over the years. She stood up, actually stood up like she was about to give a presentation to stockholders. Kyle stood too, grinning like he'd just invented indoor plumbing. They looked at each other, then at me, with the kind of excitement you see in multi-level marketing presentations. That's when I knew this was going to be bigger than usual. This wasn't a small leak. This was a main line break. Carol started talking about opportunities, about investing in the future, about family working together. The words came out rehearsed, practiced, like they'd been workshopping this pitch for days. Then she hit me with it. They wanted to flip houses. Seen it on TV. Looked easy enough. Great returns, couldn't fail. They had it all figured out. Even had a spreadsheet, which Kyle pulled out on his phone, like he was showing me the cure for mortality. The numbers were absurd. They needed $85,000 for the down payment and initial repairs. $85,000. She said it like she was asking to borrow a wrench. But here's the kicker. They also wanted me to do all the work. For free. Kyle actually used the word opportunity to describe me working for free. Said I'd be their general contractor, their plumber, their electrician, their everything. Said it would be good for me. Keep me active in my retirement years. I wasn't even retired yet. The girlfriend chimed in, said something about how this was my chance to be part of something bigger than just fixing toilets. Just fixing toilets. Like that's all I'd done my whole life. Like keeping water flowing and sewage moving for 3 decades was some kind of hobby. Like the work that destroyed my knees and my back was just something I did to pass the time. Mom nodded along, lost in her own world. She probably thought we were discussing Thanksgiving plans. God bless her. At least dementia meant she didn't have to see what her children had become. Or maybe she could see it all along and chose forget. Can't say I blame her. They kept talking. Projected profits. Timeline. How they'd already looked at some properties. How they'd already told some potential investors about their experienced contractor me. They'd been selling my expertise before even asking if I'd help. Using my reputation. Built over 30 years of honest work. as collateral for their fantasy. I stared at my coffee while they talked. It was the same mug I'd drunk from for 15 years at this table. Chipped on the handle, stained brown inside despite countless washings. Like me, functional, reliable, beaten up but still holding together. I watched the steam rise from it, little wisps of heat escaping into the cold air of Carol's dining room. Even the coffee was trying to get out. When they finally stopped talking, the silence was deafening. Everyone looking at me, waiting for my response. Waiting for good old Frank to say yes, to reach for his checkbook, to volunteer his time, his money, his expertise, to be the solution to their problem, just like always. I took a long sip of coffee. Still too hot, burned my tongue a little. The pain was actually refreshing, something real in all this manufactured enthusiasm. I set the mug down carefully, deliberately. The little clink it made against the saucer seemed to echo in the silent room. Then I looked up, made eye contact with Carol first, then Kyle, even looked at the girlfriend, who was already composing her Instagram post about this amazing family moment. I could see it in her eyes. She'd already spent my money in her head. They all had. I said no. Just no. Not, let me think about it. Not, maybe we could work something out. Not, the timing isn't right. Just no. 2 letters, 1 syllable, the shortest complete sentence in the English language, and possibly the most powerful. Carol's face went through more changes than a teenager's social media profile. Confusion first. Surely she'd heard wrong. Then disbelief. I couldn't possibly mean it. Then anger. How dare I? Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, which would have been funny if it wasn't so sad. Kyle looked like I just told him Santa Claus was a tax evader. Complete shock. The kind of face you make when the ATM says insufficient funds. But you were sure there was money in there. His girlfriend stopped taking pictures. Even she could feel the temperature drop in that room. Carol found her voice first. Asked what I meant by no. What did no mean? As if it was some foreign word she'd never encountered. As if no was negotiable, just the starting point of a conversation that would end with yes. That's how it had always worked before. I could have explained. Could have told them about overhearing Kyle's confession. Could have laid out 25 years of grievances like evidence in a court case. Could have made them understand. But you know what? I was tired of explaining myself. Tired of justifying my decisions. Tired of being tired. So I just said it again. No. And then I added 6 more words that changed everything. The valve is closed. For good. That's when Carol exploded. And I mean exploded. Like a pipe that's been under too much pressure for too long. Like all the valves failed at once and everything came rushing out. The real Carol. The one I've been subsidizing all these years. She actually stood up and pointed at me. Said I had no right to say no. No right. Like my money was already hers. My time already allocated to their scheme. Said I'd been nobody my whole life. Nobody. Just a plumber who got lucky having a successful sister and talented nephew. Said the only thing that made me matter was helping family. Without them, I was just an old man with a wrench and nothing to show for it. Kyle jumped in, backing his mother. Said I was being selfish. Selfish. Me, the man who paid for his 3 cars, his acting classes, his bail, his rent, his everything. Selfish. The word hung in the air like a bad smell from a backed-up septic tank. The girlfriend started recording, actually pulled out her phone, and started recording the drama for her followers. This was content. My family's destruction had become content. That's when I knew we'd cross a line we couldn't come back from. But here's the thing, I didn't argue, didn't defend myself, didn't throw their failures in their faces, or list every sacrifice I'd made. Because suddenly, sitting there listening to them reveal who they really were, I realized something. They were right. Without them, I was just a plumber. And you know what? That was enough. That had always been enough. I stood up slowly. My knees protested. They always did these days. Reached into my pocket and pulled out my keys. That ring of keys had been weighing me down for years. Keys to Carol's house. To her garage. to the storage unit I paid for, to Kyle's apartment, to Mom's old place. Keys to everyone else's life, but my own. One by one, I took them off the ring. Each key made a little metallic sound as I placed it on Carol's good tablecloth, the one she only used for special occasions, the one I bought her for Christmas 5 years ago. Each key was a goodbye. Each key was a door closing. Each key was freedom. Carol asked what I was doing. Her voice had gone from angry to something else, something like fear, because angry Frank she could handle. Silent Frank was something new, something unpredictable, something that didn't fit in her spreadsheet. I looked at her one last time, really looked at her, saw the girl who used to ride on my shoulders at the county fair, the teenager who cried when her boyfriend dumped her, the woman who'd somehow convince herself that family meant taking until there was nothing left to take. I felt sorry for her, not angry, just sorry. Told her she was right. I was just a plumber, and I was retiring, effective immediately. Told her to find someone else. Then I walked out. No dramatic exit. No slamming doors. Just walked out like I was leaving any other job site at the end of a long day. The night air hit me like freedom itself. Cold, sharp, real. I could hear them shouting behind me, but their voices faded as I walked to my truck. That old F-150 started on the first try, like it knew we were finally going somewhere that mattered. I drove for hours that night. No destination. No plan. Just driving. The city lights blurred past like memories I was finally letting go of. 25 years of driving to other people's emergencies, and this was the first time I was just driving for me. Ended up at a gas station around midnight. One of those 24-hour places that sell everything from motor oil to dreams. Needed coffee and aspirin. My head was pounding like someone was using it for percussion practice. The fluorescent lights made everything look sick and green, but somehow that felt right. Everything was different now. Even the light. The kid behind the counter couldn't have been more than 19, probably working to pay for college, or maybe just working to work. He looked tired. I knew that tired. It's the tired that comes from carrying other people's weight. Wanted to tell him to put it down before it broke him, but that's not the kind of advice you take from strangers at midnight. That's when I saw it, right there next to the scratch-offs and cigarettes. A Powerball advertisement. Dream big. It said in letters so bright they hurt to look at. 300 million jackpot. The kind of money that changes everything or ruins everything, depending on who you ask. I'd never bought a lottery ticket in my life. Never. Thought they were a tax on people who couldn't do math. Dad called them hope tickets, little pieces of paper people bought when they'd given up on real solutions. But standing there at midnight, having just walked away from everything I'd known, I thought maybe hope wasn't the worst thing to spend $10 on. The kid asked if I wanted to quick pick or to choose my own numbers. I almost laughed. I'd been letting other people pick my numbers my whole life. Might as well let a machine do it. At least machines don't call asking for bail money. $10. That's what it cost. $10 for 6 random numbers that meant nothing. $10 I would have given Kyle, without thinking if he'd asked. $10 that Carol would have considered nothing when planning her budgets. But these were my $10, spent on my choice, for absolutely no good reason at all. The ticket felt strange in my hand. Flimsy, insignificant, like it could blow away in the wind, and nobody would notice. I folded it once, twice, then stuck it in my shirt pocket. Not because I thought I'd win. Not because I believed in miracles or fate or any of that. Just because for the first time in 25 years, I'd done something purely, stupidly, beautifully pointless. Got back in my truck and sat there for a minute, engine running, heat slowly filling the cab. The radio was playing that Tom Petty song about not backing down. I'd heard 1,000 times, but never really listened to the words. Now they made sense. Sometimes not backing down doesn't mean fighting. Sometimes it just means standing still while everyone else expects you to move. I pulled out of that gas station and headed home, not to face the music or make amends or any of that Hallmark movie garbage. Just home, to my little apartment with its water-stained ceiling and neighbors who fought every Friday night. to my own bed where nobody would wake me up with their emergencies, to my life, whatever that meant now. The lottery ticket shifted in my pocket as I drove, a little reminder the first irresponsible thing I'd done in decades. It felt good, not the ticket itself, but what it represented, the possibility of possibility, the idea that maybe, just maybe, life wasn't just about fixing what was broken. Maybe sometimes it was about taking a chance on something new. Pulled into my parking spot as the clock hit 2 a.m. The building was quiet, everyone asleep, storing up energy for tomorrow's problems. But I wasn't tired. For the first time in years, I wasn't tired. I was empty, broke, probably about to lose my apartment, definitely about to lose my family. But I wasn't tired. I sat in my truck for one more minute, engine off, just listening to the cooling metal tick and pop. Then I reached up and pulled the lottery ticket from my pocket, looked at those random numbers in the dim light from the street lamp, didn't try to memorize them, didn't kiss them for luck, just folded the ticket back up and stuck it in the glove compartment, right between the registration and an old map of Wisconsin I'd never used. Then I went inside. No looking back. No second thoughts. Just a 58-year-old plumber with bad knees and a lottery ticket, walking into whatever came next. The valve was closed. The pressure was off. And for the first time in 25 years, I was flowing in my own direction. That lottery ticket sat in my glove compartment for 3 days like an unexploded bomb I'd forgotten about. Not forgotten, really. Just ignored. Like a bill you know you can't pay. So you leave it unopened on the counter. Wednesday morning changed all that. I was sitting in the Walmart parking lot, drinking gas station coffee that tasted like someone had filtered it through a dirty sock. My phone was propped against the steering wheel, and I was scrolling through job listings. 58 years old, and looking at entry-level positions like I was fresh out of high school. Pride's expensive when you're broke. The Powerball site loaded slow. I wasn't even check, but there was this ad on the jobs page, right next to experienced plumber wanted, must work weekends. The winning numbers stared back at me from my phone screen. I looked at them, looked at the ticket, looked back at the screen. Did that 3 more times, like my brain was a computer that needed rebooting. The numbers matched, all 6 of them, even that red Powerball number at the end, sitting there like a cherry on top of an impossible sundae. $250 million. 2, 5, 0, and 6 more zeros after that. No screaming, no jumping, no calling everyone I knew, not that there was anyone left to call. I just leaned back in that cracked vinyl seat and laughed. Not a happy laugh. More like the laugh you make when you finally get the punchline to a joke that's been setting up your whole life. The pipe had burst all right. But this time, instead of sewage, it was spraying money. You know what's funny about winning the lottery? Your first thought isn't about yachts or mansions. It's about all the ways it can go wrong. Every documentary I'd ever seen about lottery winners flashed through my head. The bankruptcies, the murders, the cousins you never knew existed suddenly showing up with sob stories and lawyers. I sat there in that Walmart parking lot, a multimillionaire in a 15-year-old truck, and my first coherent thought was, well, this is going to be complicated. Drove home slow, like I was carrying nitroglycerin in the back. Kept checking the rear-view mirror, half expecting to see the universe's repo man come and take it all back. But the ticket was real. The numbers were real. The whole impossible thing was real. First thing I did was Google what to do when you win a lottery without destroying your life. The internet's good for something after all. Every article said the same thing. Don't tell anyone. Get a lawyer. Get a financial advisor. Take the lump sum. Don't be an idiot. That last one wasn't in the articles, but it was implied. Found a law firm 3 towns over. The kind with names that sound like a roll call at Harvard. Morrison, Blackstone, and Associates. The receptionist spoke in that tone reserved for people with real money. When I told them why I was calling, her voice changed completely. Suddenly, I wasn't a plumber with dirt under his fingernails. I was Mr. Franklin, and could I please hold for Mr. Morrison himself? Morrison looked exactly like you'd expect. Silver hair, perfect teeth, suit that probably cost more than my truck. but he knew his business. Walked me through setting up something called an anonymous trust, Delaware LLC, layers of legal protection between me and the hungry world. He'd done this before, he said. More common than you'd think. Rich people, he explained, don't just have money. They have fortresses built out of paperwork. The financial advisor was a different breed. Young guy, maybe 35, talked about diversified portfolios and municipal bonds like they were Pokemon cards. But when he showed me the final number, after taxes, after the lump sum reduction, I finally understood what I was looking at. $85,176,000. He kept talking about investment strategies, but all I could think was, that's a lot of plumbing jobs. Told him I wanted it simple. Some in safe stuff, some in moderate risk, and $5 million liquid for immediate needs. He looked at me like I'd asked for my money in pennies. $5 million in checking? Was I insane? Maybe, I told him, but it was my insanity to have. The state lottery office was a circus. Even with the anonymous trust, word gets out. Small town, big money. That equation never stays secret long. Local news was there when I arrived with Morrison. They got footage of a lawyer walking into a building. Pulitzer stuff, really, but my name stayed out of it for about 72 hours. Don't know who leaked it. Could have been someone at the lottery office. Could have been someone who saw me at the law firm. Could have been the universe's twisted sense of humor. But Thursday morning, there was on Channel 6, local plumber wins Powerball jackpot. They even had my high school yearbook photo. Hair and hope, I'd had both back then. My old phone became a nuclear reactor of notifications. Calls, texts, Facebook messages from people I hadn't heard from since MySpace was a thing. I gave it to Morrison's assistant. Let her deal with the radiation. Got myself a new phone, new number. Told maybe 3 people in the world what it was. The lawyer, the financial guy, and my buddy Mike in Phoenix. Because somebody should know you're alive who doesn't bill by the hour. Carol was the first to make a public move. Of course she was. Local morning show, tears perfectly applied, wearing her best victim face. Told the whole city how her heartless brother had abandoned his family after winning millions. How I'd been manipulated by predatory advisors who'd isolated me from my loved ones. She actually used the phrase elderly and confused. I was 58, not 85, and the only thing I was confused about was how I'd tolerated her for so long. The messages Morrison's assistant forwarded were a masterpiece of manipulation. Started with congratulations, moved of concern, escalated to threats. My favorite was Kyle's text saying Mom was in the hospital because of the stress I'd caused. Morrison had it checked. Mom was fine, living in the same assisted living facility I'd been paying for, watching game shows, and doing crossword puzzles. They'd tried to use her as a hostage in a negotiation that was never going to happen. Then came the relatives I'd forgotten existed. Third cousins, great aunts. Some guy who claimed we'd been best friends in 3rd grade. And did I remember the time he'd shared his lunch with me? All of them with stories. All of them with needs. All of them with my phone number somehow. Morrison's assistant started a spreadsheet. By week 2, the total amount requested from various family members hit $12 million. That's a lot of lunches from 3rd grade. But Kyle, he took it to another level. Found himself a podcast bro with a YouTube channel and gave an exclusive interview. My Uncle Frank, the man who forgot his family. 45 minutes of pure fiction. How I'd promised to pay for his film school. How I'd sworn on my father's grave to take care of them. How the money had corrupted me instantly, turned me from a loving uncle into Scrooge McDuck. The kid had always been creative. I'll give him that. But the best part, the absolute chef's kiss of delusion, was when he looked straight into the camera and announced his plan. He was going to make a documentary about lottery winners who abandoned their families. Budget, $15 million. And he was sure I'd fund it because, quote, deep down, Uncle Frank knows he owes us. We were his only family, his only purpose. Without us, he's just a lonely old man with money he doesn't know how to spend. I watched that interview on my new 75-inch TV in my new apartment. Not a mansion, just a nice 2-bedroom in a building with actual security and walls that didn't shake when the neighbor sneezed. The irony of Kyle calling me lonely while I sat there in peace. Nobody asking for anything. Nobody lying about medical emergencies. Nobody treating me like an ATM with a pulse. It was almost poetic. Morrison suggested a restraining order. The financial advisor suggested moving to another state. Mike suggested I buy a boat and sail away from all of it. But I had a different idea. See, when you fix pipes for 30 years, you learn something about pressure. You can't just cap it off and hope it goes away. You need to redirect it, control it, use it. So I had Morrison draft a letter. 2 parts, both simple. First, a trust fund for Mom. Full medical care, best assisted living money could buy. Everything handled through the lawyers. She'd want for nothing, but Carol and Kyle couldn't touch a penny. Second, any further contact attempts, any more interviews, any social media posts, anything. And even Mom's fund would be dissolved and donated to charity. Not a threat, just physics. Equal and opposite reactions. Carol tried one more TV appearance after that. Started to cry about how I was holding their mother hostage with money. The host asked her why she couldn't pay for her own mother's care. The silence that followed was beautiful. You could actually see her brain try and compute an answer that didn't make her look like exactly what she was. She never did another interview. Kyle posted one rage-filled rant on Instagram before his account went quiet. Something about justice and karma, and how the universe would balance things out. His girlfriend left him a week later. Guess dating a guy whose meal ticket got revoked wasn't as influence-worthy as she'd hoped. The funny thing about money is how it reveals people. Not changes them, reveals them. Carol had always been a taker dressed up as a sister. Kyle had always been a user dressed up as a nephew. The money just washed away the costume. And me, I'd always been a guy who fixed things. Now I just had better tools. 6 months later, I ran into Kyle's ex-girlfriend at a coffee shop. The influencer. She didn't recognize me at first. I'd grown a beard, looked healthier, probably because I was sleeping through the night for the first time in decades. When she figured out who I was, her face went through about 5 different expressions before landing on embarrassment. She mumbled something about Kyle being complicated and hurried away with her oat milk latte. Even she knew. Everyone knew. Everyone had always known. Carol had to sell the house. The one I'd fixed, maintained, and partially paid for. Market was down, and she didn't know the first thing about negotiation. Lost money on it. Last I heard, she was working at Target. Not management. Cash register. Kyle delivered pizzas for a while, then moved back in with Carol. 2 takers in a 1-bedroom apartment, each waiting for the other to provide what neither could give. But here's the thing about justice. It's not as satisfying as you think it'll be. Watching them struggle didn't make me happy. It just made me tired. All those years of anger and resentment. And when I finally got my revenge, it tasted like nothing, like chewing cardboard. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And I'd finally achieved perfect, complete indifference. So I did what I always do. I got to work. But this time, I was working for myself. Set up a foundation, the Good Connections Grant. Named it after what Dad always said about plumbing and life. The foundation pays for trade school, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, welding, real skills for real work, full ride plus tools plus a living stipend. No loans, no catch, no having pretend gratitude at family dinners. The first kid we sponsored was this 19-year-old named Marcus from Cleveland. Smart as hell, but couldn't afford college and didn't want the debt anyway. Wanted to be an electrician. We paid for everything. 2 years later, he's making $70,000 a year and owns his own truck. Send me a picture of it. F-150, just like mine. But is as new and doesn't sound like it's dying. That's 23 kids now. 23 lives changed. Not saved, I'm no savior. Just changed. Given a chance to work with their hands and make something of themselves without owing anyone anything. They send me updates, sometimes. Pictures of first apartments, new babies, completed jobs they're proud of. Real gratitude, not the manufactured kind you get at family dinners. The presentation ceremony for the foundation was small. No press releases or red carpets. Just me, the board, and the kids getting their grants. I gave a short speech, told them about my dad, about pressure and balance, about building things that last, told them the only thing they owed was to do good work, and maybe, someday, help someone else. That's it. That's the whole contract. One kid asked me if I miss my family. Honest question from a kid who probably had his own complicated story. I thought about it for a long moment. Told him I missed who I thought they were. But you can't fix people like you fix pipes. People have to want to work right. And some people are just broken by design. These days, I live in Oregon, a little place on Crater Lake. Built most of it myself. First time in 40 years I got to work on something without a deadline or someone else's emergency driving the schedule. Every joint is perfect. Every pipe is exactly where it should be. The water pressure is balanced throughout the whole house. It's the best work I've ever done. Got a dog now, rescue retriever named Duke. He's old, arthritic, missing some teeth. Shelter said nobody wanted him because he wasn't young and pretty anymore. I told them that made two of us. He sleeps by my feet while I tie fishing flies. Never caught a damn thing with him, but the tying is meditative, like solving little puzzles with feathers and thread. The money's mostly autopilot now. Investments doing whatever investments do. Foundation running smooth. Mom's taken care of. I don't even check the balance anymore. Once you have enough, more is just numbers on a screen, like a high score in a game you're not really playing. Morrison calls sometimes with updates, usually about Carol and Kyle trying new angles. Apparently, they've started a GoFundMe claiming I'm keeping them from their rightful inheritance. Raise about $300, mostly from other relatives who are probably hoping for a cut. The internet told them to get jobs. Sometimes the internet gets things right. Mike visited last month. First time in 5 years we'd actually sat down together. We fished all day. Didn't catch anything, didn't care. He told me I looked 10 years younger. I told him money can't buy youth, but it can buy really good mattresses and the time to use them. He laughed. Real laughter, not the nervous kind people do around sudden millionaires. Yesterday was the anniversary. 1 year since I bought that ticket. 1 year since everything changed and nothing changed. I'm still a plumber. Still got bad knees. Still drink terrible coffee. But now I do it by choice, not necessity. And that makes all the difference. The phone rings. It's the foundation director. Our newest group of kids just graduated. One of them, a young woman from Detroit, scored the highest marks in her welding program's history. She wants to specialize in underwater welding. Dangerous work, but it pays like crazy. I tell him to make sure she gets the best equipment, the best training, whatever she needs. Because that's what we do. We make good connections. I hang up and look out at the lake. It's so still you could skip a stone clear to the other side if you had the arm for it. Duke's snoring by the fireplace. The coffee's terrible but hot. And for the first time in my life, there's no sound of dripping, no gurgling pipes, no emergency calls coming, just quiet. 25 years I listened for leaks, waited for things to break. Lived my whole life on call for other people's disasters. Turned out the biggest disaster was letting them make their problems my responsibility. Dad was right about pressure and balance. He just never told me what to do when the whole system was rigged against you from the start. But I figured it out. You don't fix a broken system. You don't rage against it. You don't even abandon it dramatically. You just quietly build a better one, pipe by pipe, connection by connection. Until one day you're living in a house you built yourself, with a dog who doesn't judge your coffee addiction, watching the sun set over a lake that doesn't care about your family drama. The lottery didn't make me rich. It just gave me permission to stop being poor. Not money poor, soul poor. The kind of poor that comes from pouring yourself into broken vessels that never wanted to be fixed. The kind that comes from mistaking need for love and obligation for purpose. I won $250 million, but that's not the victory. The victory is this. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up whenever I want, make terrible coffee, sit on my porch, and not think about Carol or Kyle or any of them. Not because I hate them, not because I'm angry, but because they're just not my problem anymore. And after 25 years of being everyone's solution, being nobody's problem is worth more than all the money in the world. That's my story. That's how a plumber who never played the lottery became a multimillionaire who still can't make decent coffee. That's how fixing everyone else's leaks taught me to seal my own. That's how I learned that sometimes the best repair is knowing what's not worth fixing. The sun setting now over Crater Lake, turning the water the color of copper pipes. Duke's awake, wagging his tail like, I might produce dinner from thin air. I might. That's the beauty of it. I might do anything or nothing, and both are perfectly fine. The pressure is balanced. The connections are good. And for the first time in my life, the only emergency I have to handle is deciding what to feed an old dog who's earned the right to be picky. Some people win the lottery and lose everything. Some people win and buy everything. Me, I won and learned the most valuable thing you can buy with money is the right to say no. 2 letters, 1 syllable, worth every penny of $250 million.